This is the video for Module 1, adding decimals. First thing is when you have numbers in unit form, you first need to write them into standard form. So first you see here that there's 2/10, and I write that in standard form right underneath. And then I'm adding that to 6/10. So I write that right in standard form underneath. I then need to make sure that I stack my numbers like I did when I was comparing and ordering, which is making them vertical. That helps me to line them up by their place value, which is lining them up using the decimal in order to line them up by their place value. So then when I stack them, I can add 2 plus 6 is 8, and I just bring my decimal right down into the same spot. Here's another example. We have 3/100ths. This time we have to be aware that we go tenths then hundredths. So we have to fill in this empty spot. The placeholder always has a 0. And we're adding that to 8/100ths. Same thing. We have tenths, then we have hundredths. So we fill in the 8, and then we have a placeholder of a 0. We line them up vertically using the decimal to line them up by their place value. I add 3 plus 8, and I get 11, and I carry my 1, bring that down, and I end up with 11/100ths. Now I have numbers that have whole numbers and decimals to them. So I have 2 ones and 3 thousandths. All of that is before the addition symbol. So I need to make that into one number. So I have ones, and I have tenths, hundredths, thousandths, and I fill it in. I have 2 ones, I have 3 thousandths, and I use the zeros as placeholders. Then I come over here and I'm adding it to 6 ones and 1 thousandth. So I have ones, tenths, hundredths, thousandths. I have 6 ones. Then I have 1 thousandth, and I have 0, 0 as my placeholder. I now am going to add them vertically by lining them up by their place value using the decimal. And I add, and then when I get to my decimal, I bring it right down, and I have my answer of 8 and 4/100ths. Sorry, 4 thousandths. Next, I have 2 tenths and 5 thousandths, so it's all on the decimal side. So I make sure that I write my decimal. I have tenths, hundredths, thousandths. That's all of this that comes before the addition sign. So I have my 2 tenths, I have my 5 thousandths, and I fill in my 0 for the missing place. I then add it to 6/100ths. So I have tenths, hundredths, and now I line them up vertically, stacking them. And when I go to do this one, I notice that there's some empty spaces here. These empty spaces, no matter what, I have to fill in with a 0. So then I just add, and I make sure I put my decimal point in. Next, we have 7 ones and 6 tenths, so we know we have ones, and then we have tenths. So I have 7 ones, and I have 6 tenths. Then I'm adding that to 36/100ths. So I have tenths, hundredths. 36 has to end in the hundredths place. So now I can add my two numbers. I have 7 and 6 tenths, and I have 36/100ths. So when I go to add them, I need to make sure that I fill in zeros in my empty placeholders. And then I can add them up. When I get to my decimal, I bring my decimal right down in order to get my answer. Sometimes we have standard form and unit form mixed together. When I do that, first I make the standard form over here. So I have 13 tenths. Here is my tenths place. So the 13 has to end in the tenths, which means the 3 is there, and I work backwards. So now I can add the two of them together. And I have to bring that decimal right down. Here we have 100 and 8/100ths. So here's the hundredths place all the way out here. And I have 1 in the hundredths place. And I'm going to the hundredths, and I have an 8 in the hundredths place. Everything else gets filled in with a 0. And now I'm adding it to this number out here that has a ones all the way out to the hundredths. 2 ones, 4 hundredths, and I fill in my placeholder with a 0. I then rewrite them in stacking form, lining them up by their place value, which uses the decimal, Any empty spot I fill in with zeros. I bring that decimal right down, and I have my answer of 102 and 12 hundredths. Last one in this method, we have 148 thousandths, so we know we have tenths, hundreds, thousandths, and we're adding that to this number, which is ones, tenths, hundreds, thousandths. There's 7 ones. 13 thousandths, the thousandths has to have the 13 ending in it, so I have to fill that in with a 0. I then have to stack them. And I have to fill in all the empty spots with a 0. Then other times you will just have the standard algorithm and you need to rewrite it so that they're stacked. They're already in standard form. Standard algorithm is the regular way that we add. I line them up using their decimal. Bring that decimal right down. And I just add. Do one last one. So we're going to take 7 and 48 thousandths and add it to 5 and 196 thousandths, lining them up using the decimal, which lines up the place value. Bring down my decimal. And that's how I add using the standard algorithm for adding decimals.